Hey everyone, today we are going to be converting fractions to percents and decimals. We are going to start by converting a fraction to a percent, and then we are going to convert fractions to decimals. So this one says, step 1, write the equivalent ratio with a denominator of 100. So yesterday we learned that all percents are out of 100. Today we are going to use that same idea to get us from our fractions to our percents. So I'm going to write an equivalent ratio with a denominator of 100. Sometimes we are going to have to scale backwards to scale forward. So there are going to be times where we have to simplify the fraction in order to get the denominator to 100. If you're given a mixed number, we're going to rewrite it as an improper fraction first. But here in these examples, we are not given an improper fraction yet. We're going to talk about those later. In step 2, it says the new numerator is your percent. So we're going to get that fraction with a denominator of 100, and then we're going to take that top number, and that is our percentage. So when we write our answer in step 2, we're going to make sure we include a percent sign. So in step 1, I'm going to look at 3 over 10, and I'm going to say, how do I get it to a denominator of 100? Well, in this one, I'm going to do one step, and I'm going to scale forward. 10 times 10 is 100. So I'm going to do times 10 on top. 3 times 10 is 30. So my numerator up here is my percent. And in step 2, I'm going to write it as a percent. So 30 over 100 is 30%. So 3 out of 10 is 30 over 100 is 30%. For 17 out of 20, again, I'm looking for how do I get to 100? To get to 100, I'm going to multiply 20 times 5. So I'm going to do 17 times 5. 17 times 5 is 85, and I just used my multiplication chart. So this number on top is my percent, so I'm going to write my answer over here as 85%. Okay, so the percent here is my answer, not that fraction out of 100. I'm trying to get to the percent. This third one, 24 over 75, here is your example of where you have to scale backwards to scale forward. Because I cannot get from 75 directly to 100, I know that I have to scale back in order to scale forward. Okay, that second value is always going to be 100. So if you can't get directly there, you're going to have to scale backwards first. In order to scale backwards here, I'm going to divide by 3 in both places because that's what they have in common. 24 divided by 3 is 8, and 75 divided by 3 is 25. I got a little ahead of myself. To get to from 25 to 100, I'm going to multiply by 4. And 8 times 4 is 32. So there's my percent on top. My answer is 32%. 9 out of 12 is the same thing. So from 9 out of 12, I have to go to an in-between, and then I can go to 100 because there's nothing I can multiply by 12 to get to 100. 9 and 12 also have a 3 in common. So 9 divided by 3 is 3, and 12 divided by 3 is 4. To get from 4 to 100, I'm going to multiply by 25. So to get from 3 to 100, I'm going to multiply by 25. 3 times 25 is 75. So here's my percent on top, 75%. Down here, I've got 3 over 5. This one I can get directly from 5 to 100 by multiplying by 20. So I'm going to do the same thing on top. 3 times 20 is 60. So 60%. For 30 over 1,000, I'm trying to get to 100. Now this one, I just have to scale backwards to get to 100. So if I divide by 10 in both places, 1,000 divided by 10 is 100. 30 divided by 10 is 3. So there's my percent. So my answer is 3%. This is fractions to percents. So yesterday we talked about percents to fractions and percents to decimals. When we were going from a percent to a fraction, we were putting that number over 100. Now we're being given some other fraction or a simplified fraction and asked to find that number over 100. So the value in your numerator after you get the denominator to be 100 is your percent, and that's your answer. In our next example, we're going to be converting a fraction to a decimal. So step 1 says, write the equivalent ratio with a denominator of 10, 100, or 1,000, because it's going to tell you how many decimal places that you have. Again, you may have to scale back to scale forward. And then we're going to write the decimal using the denominator. So if I've got a 10 on the bottom, it's going to be 1 decimal place, so 1 line. What that means is, here's my decimal, I've got 1 line. If it's out of 100, I'm going to have 2 lines. If it's out of 1,000, I'm going to have 3 lines. And my decimal should end on the last line. Okay, so your decimal should end on the last line. So I've got several examples here. The first 3 follow this pattern. So I've got 9 out of 10, 2 out of 100, 72 out of 1,000. We're just going to follow step 2. So my denominator has a 10 or 100 or 1,000 on the bottom already, and I'm just going to use the denominator. So 9 out of 10 is already out of 10. So I'm going to have a decimal with 1 space. And in that space is going to go a 9. In this second one, because my fraction is out of 100, I'm going to have a decimal with 2 spaces. And my number must end in that second space. So there's going to be a 0 in the first one. For 72 out of 1,000, I'm going to have 3 spaces. 1, 2, sorry, I wrote that too big. 1, 2, 3. And I know that 2 has to be the last number. So 7 goes here. So there must be a 0 first. So this is out of 10. This is out of 100. This one's out of 1,000. So when I look at this next one, 7 out of 20, the closest number that I can get it to is going to be 100. I can't go back to 10, and I don't want to go to 1,000 if I have to because it's really big. So I'm going to go from 20 to 100 by multiplying by 5. So 7 times 5 is 35. Now instead of writing it as a percent, I'm trying to write it as a decimal. So I've got 100 on the bottom, so I'm going to have 2 spaces. And I'm just going to fill the spaces with my 2 values. Okay, this one is the same as 100 on the bottom. For the next one, 3 out of 500, the easiest value on the bottom to get to is going to be 1,000, because I cannot scale back easily to 100, so I'm going to go up to 1,000. To get from 500 to 1,000, I'm going to multiply by 2, and 3 times 2 is 6. Because my fraction is out of 1,000, when I write my decimal, I'm going to have 3 places. 1, 2, 3. And I know that my number must end with 6. So there's going to be 2 zeros in that place, in those placeholder spaces. And this is my 1,000 on the bottom. So my green. For 6 out of 15, there's no easy way to get from 15 to 10 to 100 to 1,000. So I'm going to simplify first. These have a 3 in common. So I get 2 out of 5. Now for this one, I can get to 10. I don't have to go all the way to 100. If I do, I'm going to get the same answer. But to get from 5 to 10, I'm going to multiply by 2. Sorry. And 2 times 2 is 4. For my decimal, it's out of 10, so I'm going to have 1 decimal place. And there's a 4 on top. And that's going to be the same as your orange from the very beginning. So the most difficult part of this is going to be choosing what denominator you go to. You want to go to the easiest one possible. So the first 3 were already in that form for you. For this one right here, 100, 100 was the easiest because getting to 10 would not be simple. For this one right here, 1,000 was the easiest because, again, getting to 10 or 100 would be a little bit more difficult. And then for this last one, there was no easy way to get from 15 to 10, 100, or 1,000. So we're going to simplify that fraction first. I can see that 6 and 15 have something in common. So I'm going to simplify first, and then to get from 5 to 10 is going to be the easiest. And again, use the templates here. So I've got these awesome little templates right here. If it's got a 10 on the bottom, it's 1 space. If it's got 100 on the bottom, it's 2 spaces. If it's got 1,000 on the bottom, it's 3 spaces. And then down here, I have your place values again. So tenths is going to be 1 decimal place, hundredths, thousands, 10,000s, etc. Your homework is a worksheet on converting fractions to percents and decimals. Good luck.